Good morning, Joe Sestak. Thanks for calling our show today.
Good morning, guys. Great to be back.
I do appreciate that. Where are you? You've been all over the state lately.
Yes, we left at 2 a.m. this morning and came out to Westmoreland County. We just left our 8 a.m. morning here and headed into Pittsburgh.
Well, you've
We're going
made
to meet with people throughout there and then head up to Johnstown. Unfortunately, we didn't finish last night until 12 o'clock. We had a great Bucks County event and got home, went to bed, and an hour and 15 minutes later was up to get dressed to come out. It's a great, important race. And I'm so glad I'm running for the U.S. Senate now.
We haven't visited our studios in person yet, so put Sunbury, rural Sunbury, Selinsgrove area on your stop list. I know you've been in the region a couple of times, but never at 9 in the morning. So set your clock for 1 a.m. and visit Sunbury one morning. We'd love to have you here in person. Joe Sestak
I've got that written down now.
Thank you. Democratic congressman in the 7th District and down in Bucks County. He's running against U.S. Senator Arlen Specter in the U.S. Senate Pennsylvania primary this spring. Let me, first of all, just ask you, what's the main thing that you're talking about as you crisscross the state lately? You take advantage of whatever time you can to do some campaigning here. What's your main message these days?
What I tell everybody I most want to bring to Washington, D.C., and what most ails our nation is not this economy. It's not our health care. It's the crisis. It's not Afghanistan. It's the lack of trust that a public official will actually do what they say and can willing to be accountable like I felt I was 31 years in the U.S. Navy. More than anything else, I want to be the most principled, accountable, honest, hardworking politician, public servant as I replace Arlen Specter. And I want to bring the same work habits from my district where we keep my office open 7 days a week and have handled 3 times the constituent caseload than the average congressional office. And that's the type of work ethic and be willing to be accountable that I'm talking about. And is it being responded to? Yes.
Well, I think some folks look at your voting record in Congress, I think a 6% during 2007 and 2008, 6% of the key votes you missed, or 6% of the votes that you missed during that time. So I guess I'll put a two-part question. How have you done in 2009? What percentage of votes, if any, have you missed?
I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Yeah, absolutely. What did you say? I missed 6% of the votes?
Yeah, that was on...
Yes, I got it. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, and what have you done in 2009 voting record-wise, and why is that appropriate? How accountable is that?
Absolutely. Look, I'm running on accountability, and that's a fair question. Both Arlen Specter and I have missed votes. As you know, since he became a Democrat last April, he has the 5th worst voting record in the U.S. Senate. In July, after I had been asked to get in the race by the Democratic leadership, and then Arlen became a Republican, they then asked me to sit down. I said no. I'm going to visit 6, 7 counties and find out if they want me to run and what's hurting. So I missed a couple votes in there, yes. But I also, my father was on his deathbed throughout the summer, and I missed a few for that. The issue here is I have a 94% overall voting record. I'm extremely proud of it. I have more bills passed in the legislation last year than either senator of Pennsylvania. I was called the most productive congressman in the first 2 years as a freshman than anyone else, but I will never do what Arlen Specter did, where Senator Reid announced he would close down the Senate business last September. With health care, with the economy, he would close it down so Arlen Specter could travel to Philadelphia for a $10,000 fundraiser, $10,000 a plate fundraising dinner. I promised never to cut it down, but my 94% voting record that I am the most productive legislator, I handled 3 times constituency caseload, I'm very proud of that, and I'll stand by it any day, and I appreciate that question.
Congressman Sestak, this is Than Mitchell across the table from Mark. My question to you is about...
Than, how are you?
Yeah, just fine, and cold. I hope you're a little warmer out there than... well, actually, it's warm in the studio here. When we go outside here, we're on a hilltop, so I advise you to wait until the weather warms up a bit to come up here. But my question is about fundraising. And that's really tough at this time, and everything I've been able to read, you have a little... You're a little behind in fundraising. How do you account for that? How are you going to catch up?
Well, as you well know, I don't have the establishments or the PACs or the special interest here once Arlen announced he's a Democrat. I understand he's going to outraise me. I mean, I think I have more money than any candidate that's ever run against him, however, already. And I honestly believe that public financing is the way we should go. I'm co-sponsor of a bill that there should be public financing. Money is what's influenced too many. Think the health insurance industry, how they influenced the bill on the Senate side and watered it down to an inadequate bill. I'll stand up at any moment to any moneyed interest. I've done everything I wanted to do in life when I commanded a ship at sea. I'm in this because my daughter had a brain tumor, and you all as taxpayers gave me a chance to salvage her life with my military health care plan, and I want everyone to have it. So, look, it's not about money. I mean, Mrs. Clinton was outspent 4-1 to 5-1 in the primary against Barack Obama and won. It's whether you touch and the people believe in you. You touch them, and they do. Why do you think I left at 2 a.m. this morning? We had 3 to 6 inches of snow out here, but we just plowed right on through it. No, people want to know if you're in it for them. That's what's cost this nation. It's why people don't believe that Washington, D.C. can do anything right, and this deal by the Democratic establishment of Pennsylvania and the Democratic establishment of Washington, D.C. is unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Take someone who ran the United States ship America's economy aground with our inspector of 2,000 votes with President Bush, and now he says, I'm sorry of my party. Come on, I'm telling the other side. How can we say that anyone who helped get us into this mess can help get us out? In the Navy, we leave you for cause when you run a ship aground. You know, instead of saying, come on over and show us how we can do the same thing. No, they're responding to honesty, candidness, accountability, and that's what most matters, not money.
Well, Congressman, this is Ben Reichley. One of the things that you see in Washington, you talk about lack of trust, and it's going on right now with this health care bill, is that the president talked about transparency. They talked about even detailed enough to say, these negotiations, these meetings should be on C-SPAN. To build back trust, as you talked about, I mean, it's not a Democrat or Republican issue. It's the American people feel Washington's falling short, but the next week, it seems to be falling even shorter. So, right now you have a bill that's very important to all people, and people agree with some parts, don't agree with other parts, that's being, let's say, whittled down or put together back in a room where nobody can see what is going on. What's your opinion on the lack of transparency of government on both sides?
Ben, you're spot on. The backroom deals with Democratic Senator Ben Nelson, being able to bring home to Nebraska a special deal so we get his vote. I don't mind principled compromise, but I don't want compromise of principles. And that's the kind of deal that they did for Arlen Specter. Back in the back room. No, it's wrong. That's why I voted. I have personal legislation I submitted 2.5 years ago after Nancy Pelosi said we would have an ethics committee. Not just where it's run by congressmen, but an outside committee of some sort. I waited months, and I was about to submit my thing. They asked me to hold off on it, Rahm Emanuel. And I said, I'll wait 2 more months. Finally, what they came out with was inadequate. And I put an ethics committee bill out that said you should have an outside ethics committee with subpoena power so that your retired judge is able to look at us in Congress, because we should not be held up above what I saw in the Navy. We had an inspector general who anyone could complain to, and you at least had a look at if it was true or not. No, I believe in transparency, and you're right. I don't disagree, particularly when you said you were going to do something. Here's what has ailed us so much. Here, our inspector on Friday is going to hold a hearing because the Philadelphia Inquirer said that the DA's office in Philadelphia has the worst prosecution rate across America, or very bad. So he's going to hold a hearing out there and make it transparent. But I guess he's not going to bring up in 1973, while he was DA, the Inquirer also said he had the largest prosecution staff and the worst prosecution record in America. People tend just to want to show up and be transparent when it gets them news. Look, I was in the U.S. Navy. We were held accountable. And although we weren't perfect, This issue of yours about transparency is what ails us. Sometimes I find it the least democratic place down there, and I point at my own party as well as the others. I love the principles of the Democratic Party, but how dare they think that rather than enticing someone into the democratic process, they then call me and say, sit down, because they made a backroom deal with Arlen Specter. I appreciate that, but the president I admired when he said, believe in principle and politics will follow. That's what has harmed us, is that people are not doing that down there. And I don't say that lightly. Come to my district. You're not allowed to say in my district office the word Republican or Democrat. Or my friend who I went in the Navy with in 1970, Captain Bill Walsh, retired, who came out with me, will almost literally lift you up and walk you out. We work in my district where it's 55 or 53% Republican for everyone. We want them to know who and what we're about. And I cannot agree with you more that the loss of that has harmed America.
Well, Congressman, I commend you on your answer. One quick follow-up, though. Overall, are you disappointed in the way Washington serves America?
Yes, because I think these town halls, everybody said were all orchestrated. Okay, some of it was. That's okay, got it. But no, I traveled to 67 counties in July, and I could hear from even Democrats how disappointed they were. No, yeah, I joined the military, and during the Vietnam War, I thought I'd do a number of years, but I stayed for 30-odd years. And we were ranked by the Gallup poll the year I joined 15 out of 15 institutions. 15th out of 15 institutions in terms of respect. At 22%, I think it was. It was the Vietnam War, and we were wrongly not respected. But when I left, we were number one at 78%, and I went to Congress, which is dead last. I want to do what we did in the military, bring it back in terms of respect. Yes, I think because of these deals, you see, deals that are for them. As Arlen said, he switched parties because he couldn't win in a Republican primary. I don't understand how Democratic establishment leaders can say, wait a moment, I'm not arguing here the merit of his vote. I'm arguing the reality of his vote, that he gave it to a philosophy that we disagreed with, which doubled the debt. We actually voted to ship jobs overseas by saying companies whose profits are earned overseas don't have to bring them home except when they want to be taxed. He actually voted for a tragic war in Iraq, and now he's flipped on the public option, flipped on Defense of Marriage Act, flipped on card check. No, I'm not asking the merits of it. I'm saying, how can you have faith when someone in the Democratic establishment says, you helped put this house on fire. Now, okay, you grabbed the hose, and with the economic stimulus bill, you kind of helped a little bit? No. We should not at all reward an arsonist that plays in the sense of putting our economy around. Not these aren't. And so my thing is, that's why you find people dispirited. Is there a better way? You bet there is. Pennsylvania has all the natural resources we need, and the natural gas, for one example. But are we making sure that special interests don't influence Washington and Harrisburg for what's needed? And Arlen Specter voted for the Halliburton loophole, where now, when you drill for natural gas in Pennsylvania, you don't have to reveal the chemicals that are put into the water. And Harrisburg tried to have some revenues earned for us. So, like, for example, I-80, we won't have to toll people. But no, that loses because special interests roll in of the big companies. Stand up and make a change, because Pennsylvania owns its resources, and it can be so much good for us in the needed infrastructure, in the roads, tax credits for small businesses to create jobs.
Joe,
so much to be done.
Let me stop you there real quick and just ask you one final question, and that is on air security. Now that we're talking about stepping up, and of course we have the president angry at some of his key leaders, and we have failed to connect the dots once again. Your thoughts on the air security measures that are being ramped up again?
They are a good step. Should have been done earlier. But let me just tell you what I'm dismayed about. You talk about transparency. In Philadelphia, yesterday we found out that a couple of the dogs that are sniffing failed their certification for sniffing in November, and they're still using them. They don't work, these dogs. And
these dogs have political influence, apparently.
Evidently. And TSA, somebody who helps work with the dogs there, says it's chaotic. And they just put these dogs out there even though they're not properly trained. No, wait a moment. This is public trust. And so my take on, I was at the Pentagon when 9/11 happened. I took over the Navy's anti-terrorism unit, and we tried to establish the right policies and all. I even went onto the ground in Afghanistan early in the war, came out, and then later I took the carrier battle group. But no, if there's anything Americans have to feel, that after 9/11, we always used to like away games before that, our wars over there, but all of a sudden after 9/11, we had the challenge of potentially more home games here. And so if there's anything we have to do is keep the dog from barking. That is, prevent these things from happening. And people tend to only like to be leaders in a crisis. Let me show you what I'm doing now. How do you keep the dog from barking so it doesn't occur, even though you may not get as much credit? I went to Congress, and I did work hard for the first year and a half. I actually felt I probably should have done more recently. First year and a half, I used that report card to show why we should be inspecting ships overseas to see if they have nuclear material in them coming up the Delaware River or something. And we've done that. We've appropriated more money. But it's obvious to me that, once again, we have failed to recognize that the change in this adversary that we now face after the Cold War is one that takes the interagency process not to be culturally pass information, but to share information to stop things from happening like happened with that terrorist on that plane going to Detroit.
Well, we got to stop you there, so I appreciate your call in. And remember, you have an open invitation to visit our studios just about any time. So put us on one of your stops, and we'll get you scheduled for a visit here to On the Mark. Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you so much, and have a great New Year, guys.
Thank you very much.
You too.
Congressman Joe Sestak, Democratic Congressman in the 7th District down in the Bucks County area, running against U.S. Senator Arlen Specter.